So, Nintendo has been doing a lot of things with the Switch that I and others have not been too fond of recently. Even though most people can agree that the Switch is a fantastic console, perhaps being one of Nintendo's best, there are definitely some major problems with it. These things have been talked about numerous times before, but watching other people talk about it, I feel as if they make arguments that I could easily refute, and so I just wanted to make my own arguments today in this video. So, playing Switch games online was free for the first 30 months of the Switch being out, and this was the case for every previous Nintendo console that had online. Playing online was just a basic feature that was to be expected. And this is why people were skeptical when Nintendo announced that they would require people to purchase a subscription in order to play games online. People were hopeful, however, since Nintendo's online has notoriously been awful, and perhaps charging it would incentivize them to develop a proper online service that wouldn't give a terrible experience. But like classic Nintendo, we did not get an improvement to the online service. But we got some NES games and some cloud saves, and people were furious when this was announced because something we had gotten for free was something we suddenly had to pay for. It seemed so bad that people genuinely believed there had to be more. Surely there had to be more. Surely they would add stuff to make this online service worth it. People seem to have hope, but I'm not sure why. And as the months passed by, nothing was added besides drip-fed NES games that nobody asked for. SNES games weren't even added until a full year later. And then we got Tetris 99, and that was really about it. I mean, we got Mario 35, but that game is no longer playable. And of course, there was nothing changed about the laggy online experience for all Nintendo games. I think a big part of the problem with this service is that they are intertwining retro games and the ability to play online. And this is definitely a big thing. Not everyone wants to play retro games, especially NES games. Why would I pay for this? Personally, I've been paying for this service for nearly 3 years, and I have never ever touched the NES or SNES app on the Nintendo Switch. I want to play games online, not crappy old games I've bought a million times already. If Nintendo was so confident about this service, why wouldn't they just make the basic online play free and then add all these benefits as a pay option? Because then no one would pay for the service. And then Nintendo knows this. It's scummy to lock a previously free feature behind a paywall just to make a quick buck. I think part of the reason they did this too was to stop taking away from the spotlight of indie games, since that seems to be a problem on the Wii U. But if there's this much demand, it just makes sense to release them anyway. Why hold off something people want to try to entice them to spend money on something they don't want? Nintendo seems to be going for this Netflix style of retro games rather than virtual console, but nobody asked for this. Most people want to own their games. We want to be able to play them forever on a console that we can take on the go. What will happen in 30 years when Nintendo Switch Online is discontinued? We'll probably be expected to pay for a new console and then rent games on that console. Nintendo doesn't want us to be able to own their old games because then we won't pay for them as much in the future. Perfect timing to begin selling games this way on a portable console, where it would have been amazing to own old games on a console that I can hold on to for decades. This is why I recommend to anyone who cares about retro games to buy a Wii U and get all the virtual console games that you still can. It is the last console and currently the only console, besides maybe the 3DS with a few, and the only chance you'll be able to buy the games you want and being able to own them. I have already spent hundreds of dollars on virtual console on the Wii U, and I'll probably buy even more games before it goes down. Some might be thinking a console is hundreds of dollars and I wouldn't even be able to take it on the go, so buying the online service for a few years is still cheaper. But you have to remember, Nintendo will most likely never go back to virtual console, so you will just end up renting N64 games on future consoles and overall just going to spend hundreds of dollars on something you will not be able to keep. One common argument I see is that it costs a lot of money to maintain online servers. Nintendo was practically spoiling us by giving us free online for the Wii and Wii U. It was only a matter of time before they charged us. It's only $20 a year. I completely disagree with these statements though. If online play was an extra bonus included in games, maybe I could see the argument. However, online play is essentially required for most of the big games on the Switch. Are you telling me you are going to get a full experience out of Splatoon 2 or Super Mario Maker 2 without online play? No. Online play is a basic part of the game. It is essential to get the full experience from these games. Switch games also seem to have less content than some older games from the franchise. because they rely on online play to keep people playing. I mean, look at Mario Tennis Aces versus Mario Power Tennis. Mario Power Tennis has so much more offline content than Mario Tennis Aces. You get a full game with Power Tennis, just with the game. Mario Tennis Aces has very little to do if you do not have the online service. And do I dare even bringing up Mario Tennis Ultra Smash? Could you imagine that game without online play? There's barely anything to do in that game with online play. You are still paying full price for these games and you are getting less offline content. Online play is to be expected. One last argument I want to talk about is, well, people wouldn't have been so upset with Nintendo if they had just implemented the service paid from the start and didn't give us the expectation of it for being for free, which I hate that I even have to argue against this because people who say this are literally just siding with Nintendo here. They want Nintendo to trick their audience into thinking it's not a big deal to pay for the service rather than actually making it worth buying. Why are these people arguing like this and then pretending to be on the side of the people who don't like this service? It's pretty two-faced if you ask me. It actually makes me mad whenever I hear someone make this argument. I haven't heard it too much, so I don't think many people really believe that, but it really pisses me off when I hear someone make this argument and then pretend like they don't like the service as well. Like, which is it? Do we not like it because we're too stupid or because it's a bad service? It cannot be both ways. The last thing I want to talk about is the new expansion pack released back in October of 2021. It is definitely no unpopular opinion to say that this was an absolute terrible expansion. Just terrible. I would have expected Nintendo to release this for an additional $5 or $10, even though I think adding these features to the $20 pack still wouldn't have made it worth $20. But Nintendo was high on something, and so they decided to raise it to $50 per year. Please get a Wii U and download your games. You do not want this to be the only way to play old games. I really hope nobody gets this pack. Like, I can understand paying for the $20 pack because you're grudgingly buying it in order to play these Switch games online. But there is honestly zero reason to be supporting this $50 pack. Here's a side note for the 5 people out there that care about the Sega Genesis games. Get Sega Genesis Classic on the Switch. It comes with over 50 Sega Genesis games, and you can get it for like $25 now. Just to let you know, 13 of the 19 games currently on Nintendo Switch Online for the Sega Genesis are in that game. So if you want to play old Genesis games, just get this instead of the expansion pack. It's way cheaper, and you can actually keep the games. If you pay for this expansion, I highly advise you to stop. If we want things to get better, we need to speak with our wallets so that we don't have a $99.99 GameCube expansion come out in 2 years. And that basically sums up my points and arguments. I just wanted to get this out there because I feel like a lot of people who speak out on this are too afraid to get into too much criticism. So I wanted to speak for those who may not feel like other creators are vocal enough about how terrible this is. I know I might have been a little bit over harsh, but I'm not afraid to say it. This service is a complete joke, and I do not think anyone should subscribe to it, especially the $50 pack. And it really sucks that you kind of have to enjoy the Switch experience online. And that's all for me today, though. I hope you can at least understand my perspective, and I will see you guys later.